Man, this series is so good that it had me questioning the meaning of life while I was sitting on the toilet. And I'm only 2 volumes in. Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue, I hope I'm saying that right, is one of the most highly respected manga of all time, alongside others like Berserk and Vinland Saga. It's considered part of a sort of holy trinity among seinen manga, seinen meaning targeted towards adult men, but don't let that dissuade you if you are not an adult man. Anyone can enjoy these series. Well, maybe not Berserk. But this manga is based on a novel called Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, which is based on the life of Miyamoto Musashi, a near mythological level swordsman in Japan. This video will have some mild spoilers for this series, however only for the first 2 volumes because that is all I've read so far. If you're interested in reading it, don't let that dissuade you because this thing has over 37 volumes worth of content, I think, so we're barely scratching the surface within the scope of this video. However, I'll still give a spoiler warning when the spoilers are coming up for anyone who is very sensitive to them. Alright, so quick summary of the premise of Vagabond. Like I said, it's covering the life story of Miyamoto Musashi. However, the first arc opens with 2 BFFs, Takezo and Marahachi, in the aftermath of a battle. I hope I said those names right, but I guarantee nothing. They end up at a house occupied by a woman named Oko and her daughter, who are local bandits doing bandit stuff because there's fighting happening and there's always bandit stuff to do when there's fighting happening. And they're kind of running afoul of a bigger gang of bandits named the Tsujikaze gang. So our 2 protagonists wander into this situation with this pre-existing drama already in place, and things happen that I won't delve into directly, but honestly this is much more of a character study than a plot-driven story, so I don't think it really matters what happens. What matters is what's happening in here for the characters. So as the title of the video probably suggests, the visual storytelling in this series is absolutely masterful. 2 volumes in, and I'm already throwing out masterful, because that's how fucking good it is. The subtle facial expressions throughout the various conversations, and even quieter moments where there are no conversations happening, tell you so much about the characters and their relationships and their states of mind without having to tell you anything directly. That is the trademark of a great manga. Manga is a visual medium. We can see the characters' faces, so let us see who they are and what they are thinking through the subtleties of their faces and bodies. And this series uses that aspect of manga to full advantage. We have everything ranging from soft, round, curved lines and expressions to signify innocence and elicit sympathy, and on the other side of that we have harsh, angular faces utilizing this technique that looks kind of like chalk. I don't know enough about the technical aspect of manga, but it creates this feeling of harshness and age and anger and intimidation. And then we have less stylized drawings that are nearly photorealistic, all of which serve powerful emotions to the audience and create a lot of drama without having to do all that much. Let's take the relationship of the 2 main protagonists in the first arc as an example. You do not need a single line of dialogue to understand the fundamentals of their relationship. It is conveyed so clearly just through the subtleties of their facial expressions. Takezo is headstrong. He is single-minded and driven towards his goal. He's got this callous attitude that is not necessarily cruel, but shows no quarter to anyone in his way, and is never what you would describe as exceedingly kind. Marahachi, by comparison, is a lot more lighthearted, but has these immense insecurities and this inferiority complex when compared with his best friend. It's clear just from the way that he looks at Takezo that he feels like he needs to live up to him and is failing to do that. He feels emasculated, he feels lesser constantly. Meanwhile, Takezo's just moving forward until his job is done, like certain other manga characters. Eventually, some of these things are stated explicitly or discussed out in the open, because human beings do that sometimes. We discuss our feelings. But it never feels like exposition, it just feels like a natural statement of something that is obvious, that is just a fact that is part and parcel of these characters' lives, because it's already so clear just from the visual storytelling alone. This is even more than Berserk or Vinland Saga, which are both amazing by the way, efficient storytelling. just so efficient. There's so much meaning and intent in every single panel. It's so efficient that I'm honestly not sure how it can continue for 35 more volumes. So to illustrate how efficient the visual storytelling is here, I want to use an example from chapter 17, a very specific example that could be considered a spoiler. So this is a warning. If you don't want to be spoiled, I'll put a little thingy up and I will timestamp it as well. However, again, we're 2 volumes in, come on. So chapter 17 has this crow motif with several different panels of just crows in the vicinity throughout the course of the chapter, and they serve 2 different purposes that I noticed, and maybe more that I did not notice. I'm not an expert, I'm just a dude. The first of these purposes is to signify the passage of time. See, our boy is just hanging out, literally, and these crows start to increase in number as he hangs there longer, and this kind of serves to show the passage of time and the slow approach of death, because if the crows are taking notice, you're probably not doing too hot. But wait, there's more. There's another reason that these crows are here. You see, as the chapter progresses, our boy, who is in a very strong predicament, starts to reflect on his actions. He starts to think, and the critical mass of crows comes and goes, because after a certain amount of time, you start to see them flying away. See, what this signifies is that even though his physical death is approaching with every passing moment he spends hanging out there, he was ready for death the instant he got there, because he believed that that was the natural conclusion of his life as a warrior. But once he started to confront the actual meaning of his actions, he became more aware and therefore more alive than he was, even when he was in perfect health. And for this reason, even though he might literally be closer to death, symbolically, he is more alive than ever. And so the crows flying away serves a symbolic purpose in addition to a literal purpose, i.e. showing the passage of time. There is so much communicated just through a few panels of crows, and it's done so elegantly that you might feel the impact of it without even having noticed it explicitly. The manga also makes great use of page layouts. There's nothing too crazy happening here. It's mostly just your standard square and rectangular panels arranged sequentially. It's kind of bare bones, but once again, Inoue shows mastery through efficiency and simplicity. For example, there is this sequence where we move from a present tense conversation to a flashback, and then back to present tense for like a panel, and then back to flashback. Inoue uses subtle differences in the level of detail to communicate very clearly when we're moving from present tense to past tense and back to present tense. The flashback panels have a dreamlike quality to them, and I was trying to figure out why that is, because I'm not an expert on drawing techniques, I'm not an expert on manga, but there was a reason why I knew this subconsciously without even having to be told the specific technique. And there are 2 things that I came up with. The first is the consistent usage of white backgrounds in all of these panels. There's no background detailing here, but that's not unusual in manga. I mean, it's a black and white medium, so of course you're gonna have a lot of white backgrounds. The other difference that I noticed with the flashback panels was a relative lack of detail. Nothing too crazy, nothing that made it hard to understand what was happening, but there weren't as many bold borders. It feels as if there isn't as much inking in these panels, which makes it feel a little bit less polished and therefore contributes to this dreamlike aesthetic. Because it's memory, it's not actually happening, it's being remembered. So it's not going to be photorealistic the same way that the things that we see in front of our very eyes are photorealistic. Memories are hazy and foggy and unclear, even if we might think they are not. The differences are subtle, but they're clearly there, to the point where when we return back to the present for one single panel, it's obvious that we are now back in the present. The background is significantly more detailed. There's more ink work going on, and then we move back to the past and we're back to the white backgrounds and relative lack of detailing. I've used this word a lot, but I think it's the key takeaway. Efficiency. Say more with less. Use visuals to their absolute maximum potential. So let's talk about character arcs next. Takezo's arc over the course of these 2 volumes begins with him essentially being a simple automaton obsessed with strength. It's obvious, simply from his reactions to what people say, that he doesn't fully comprehend or even think about the consequences of his actions. He quite simply does not compute at times. The art and motion during his fights is so aggressive and animalistic. You can clearly see the Berserk influence there because he feels like the personification of death itself, much like Guts does in Berserk. And from there, we start to see him growing as he starts to reflect and internalize the things that people have said to him. It's beautifully done and once again plays with a lot of the same themes as Berserk and Vinland Saga, but Vagabond feels like it speed ran them. This reflection comes alongside a slow drip feed of little tidbits from Takezo's past that help contextualize why he is the way he is without revealing too much. I don't want to take away the mysticism too fast, but a lot is made clear just from the small tidbits that we got in the body language between him and his parents. The same care, detail, and subtlety is extended to the entire supporting cast. They all have what I think is most immediately necessary for a character to be enticing, which is an internal thought process. There's a video by Super Eyepatch Wolf where he talks about internal thought processes with respect to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but essentially you can tell that there is some mechanism through which characters are thinking and then making their decisions just like you would in real life. They are not slaves to the story, they are thinking, feeling individuals. But once again, I'm going to reiterate the same thing that I've been saying for a while now. It's just so efficient. The same applies to the relationships between the various characters. I already mentioned Takezo and Marahachi's relationship, but I think the same goes for Takezo and Takuan's relationship, which gives me very much of an Iroh and Zuko kind of vibe. I know Vagabond came first, please calm down. This is just from my perspective. And also, on that note, he also looks a lot like Zahir from Korra. Anyways, the point is that there is a lot said about these relationships in a very small amount of time while leaving a lot of room for further development and growth. Vagabond tells its story so effortlessly and elegantly. It says what it has to say in the most universally understood language of simple human emotion, and yet it feels like there is so much that can be micro-analyzed in every single panel. Whether you are a religious reader of manga, an anime fan who's just getting into manga, or you've never picked up a manga in your life, I think that Vagabond has something to say that you will want to hear. So if you couldn't tell, I am kind of in love with Vagabond. I have to pace myself because I don't have room for that much manga in my bedroom. But I don't want to pace myself. I just want to go balls deep and read all 37 something volumes and then cry because it's never going to finish, and then go and pick up Musashi and read that, which is probably what everyone else does, right? If you enjoyed this, please do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment, sub, all that good stuff. If people are interested, I could turn this into a regular thing as I read through Vagabond. I'm sure there will be times where I have something to say, but I don't want to force it or make any promises about regularity and say nothing in a 10-minute video, you know what I mean? Before I go, I want to end off with a little blind prediction since I'm only 2 volumes in. Please don't be an asshole and spoil anything. Alright, so complete blind shot in the dark prediction for what's going to happen next. Takezo and Otsu leave the village, because why would Otsu stay? She has nothing to stay for, and Takezo's gonna want to fight strong dudes or whatever, because he's fucking Goku with a sword. And they eventually track down Marahachi because Otsu wants to meet Oko and see what's up with this girl. I don't think Marahachi's story is complete. I think there's more to learn about him, and the most likely way we see that is through Takezo, aka Miyamoto Musashi. It's going to take a little while for me to adjust to that, but there's more to learn about Oko as well, and Marahachi's reaction to Miyamoto Musashi's growth over the past volume and a half-ish will be interesting to see. I expect that he will be surprised at how different Musashi is, and maybe that'll make him go on another journey of self-reflection, because the man that he was comparing himself so unfavorably to for so much of his life is now completely different. So where does that leave him and his own sense of emasculation? Alright, so that about does it. I think we're done here. Bye!